The show, we always show you something that's trending on social media. How about this? You couldn't get close to court 6 yesterday. Alex Eala playing over there. This was a wild, wild scene, Martina.
Well, Lindsay was trying to get there. She couldn't. A lot of people, I mean, it's amazing that people were so nicely standing in line, but they would be there for at least an hour if they ever got to the match. So kudos to the fans. The players have no idea this is happening.
Something shifted the instant Alex Eala walked onto a quieter court at the Madrid Open, and by the final point, the match had unraveled in ways no one expected. How does a player who thrives on roaring crowds suddenly lose that edge overnight? Was it misfortune, or did that subtle scheduling choice quietly hand Elise Mertens the upper ground before a single rally was played at all times?
So Alex lost the first set, but she came back in the second, and then down 4-0 on the third set, but still managed to win the game. That is grit. That's not quitting, even when it's uncomfortable. Watching that match reminded me that, there's always a break coming, and sometimes you just have to be patient long enough to see it. And while everyone was cheering for Alex, I also felt for Sasnovich, because everyone has a story, and everyone is fighting for something, and she was just chill.
The schedule dropped without fanfare, and that silence raised more questions than answers. When a player who usually electrifies crowds suddenly goes unnoticed, it doesn't feel random. It feels like something subtle shifted, and not necessarily in their favor.
So I remember attending the first round of her match, which was a tough match at the US Open, and then I went back home, and then I was contemplating coming back, and I wanted to witness her win, because I think she has such an amazing head on her shoulders, and the game, and I think she has a voice and a platform that's gonna, transcend the sport, and as we know now, sport is not just tennis, it's fashion, it's art, it's culture, it's having a platform, and I think she does brilliantly of merging all of those.
At first, the Madrid Open delivered its usual buzz crowds, hype, and big match energy. Then, quietly, one of the tour's biggest crowd pullers was shifted off center stage. No announcement, no spotlight, just silence. And in that low-key move, the entire narrative began to change in ways few immediately noticed.
Alex, great job out there today. First match in these high altitude conditions. Yes. How did it feel?
It felt great. I think the intensity was really high throughout the whole match, so I'm really happy to have been able to pull through. Yeah.
You were fantastic on your serve today. You won 76% first serve points, saved 5 out of 6 break points, so you put yourself in good position. What did you do particularly well on your service games?
I think that was one of the things going into the match that I really had to focus on, was a good percentage of first serves. I know Anastasia's a big hitter, so I think that helped with my match today, and yeah, a lot of focus.
Seemed to be very happy to be back on the clay. How was your relationship with the surface at the moment?
Because here's what the stats miss about Alex Eala. She isn't just another rising contender chasing rankings, or a prospect waiting in line. She brings an atmosphere with her noise, emotion, and momentum that follows from country to country. When she walks onto the court, especially at a stage like the Madrid Open, the entire energy shifts. Matches feel louder, more intense, and more alive, whether the organizers anticipate it or not. And that presence alone can reshape how a contest unfolds.
With the same mentality as every match, same mentality as today, she's a big player. So I have to be ready for what she's gonna bring out, and trust that I will prepare well.
Yeah, but you haven't, you've beaten her before, so that's really gonna help boost your confidence na kahit defending champions and world number 3, kaya mo mag-repeat, di ba? Pero every game na is different.
Yeah, I would say every game is different. And just because I beat her last time, it's not like, oh.
That's why what followed felt less like routine planning and more like a quiet change with real consequences. Alex Eala opened strong against Anastasia Pavlyuchenkova at the Madrid Open, where everything aligned: the crowd, the court, and her rhythm. She played with confidence, absorbed the pressure, and delivered a performance full of energy and promise. But the second round told a different story. With little attention, she was moved to Court 5, a smaller, less vibrant setting that immediately shifted the mood. While pros are expected to adapt anywhere, Eala's game thrives on atmosphere. She builds momentum from the crowd's energy, from the noise and emotional surge around her. Take that away, and it's not just a simple adjustment, it reshapes the entire feel of the match. It's like asking a performer to shine without an audience and expecting the same intensity. In a sport decided by fine margins, that subtle change can make all the difference.
Bigger show court. She's, I think, the most famous female from the Philippines. Certainly one of the most famous people ever to come through there in the sporting world. And there were so many fans here who were just waiting to get in there. I wanted to go see Alicia Parks play.
Yep.
It was like you were getting anywhere near that court.
I tell you what, between her and Fonseca, there's going to be no more outside courts allowed for both of them pretty soon.
Yeah, you cannot put Fonseca on court 6.
No.
That is
No, he's on today. He's on one of the arenas.
bigger courts, that's for sure. But that's the 101,000 fans. It creates a problem on the smaller courts.
Well, I think the organizers need to keep more in mind where the players are from and what the actual.
And just like that, the contrast became impossible to ignore. From the first rallies against Elise Mertens, Alex Eala didn't quite resemble the player who had cruised through the previous round. The rhythm wasn't fully there, the spark came and went, and the pressure seemed to weigh a little heavier than before. On the other side, Mertens stayed calm and clinical, using her experience to dictate the tempo and steadily pull the match beyond reach. By the end, it wasn't just a defeat, it was a one-sided result that left little doubt on the scoreboard, yet raised plenty of quiet questions among those watching closely. Because this is where the conversation becomes more nuanced. No one can say Eala would have certainly won on a bigger court, that would be a stretch. But it's fair to wonder whether the conditions limited her ability to respond, to build momentum, and to turn the contest into something far more competitive. Eala's game is closely tied to energy, especially the kind generated by her passionate Filipino supporters. Wherever she plays, that crowd brings noise, emotion, and a sense of connection that can transform the atmosphere entirely. It's not just support, it's momentum you can feel. And when that element is reduced, the impact may not show in raw numbers, but it can quietly influence how a match unfolds from start to finish.
I had a dream that kind of like when I'm in a red carpet, I'll wear what's called the Filipiniana, and it's a very traditional Filipino formal wear. And I was like, it's perfect. Laureus Sports Awards. This is my first major red carpet, and I was like, this is the time. But I was kind of like, oh, how are we gonna execute? Because we're in Spain, you know. And my uncle is a well-known fashion designer in the Philippines, so we called him up, and I told him, I was like, I want this. Can you make it happen? And in a couple days, it was shipped.
Instead, what unfolded on Court 5 felt unusually flat. The familiar surge of support was muted, the noise levels dipped, and in key moments when Alex Eala typically draws energy from the crowd, there simply weren't enough voices to lift her. Every error seemed to carry more weight, every lost point lingered a little longer, and the match slowly drifted out of her control. As the pressure mounted, another layer of frustration crept in. Late in the second set, she received a warning from the umpire, something that might seem minor on its own, but in a tense match, it can have a real psychological effect. It disrupted her rhythm, tightened the moment, and made an already uphill battle even harder to manage. The player who usually commands packed stands and loud reactions ended up leaving a smaller court with far less energy surrounding her, a contrast that didn't go unnoticed. What makes it more puzzling is how tournaments typically treat players like Eala. At most events, organizers understand her value extends beyond results. She draws crowds, creates atmosphere, and brings a level of engagement that elevates the entire experience, something that's rarely overlooked when scheduling key matches.
You know, I'd have to say maybe a little bit of Sania Mirza. Back in her heyday, obviously the Indian fans took to her and they followed her all around the globe. Obviously not to this extent. And I think the ceiling that Alex Eala has is obviously that much.
Placing Alex Eala on a main court isn't just about sport, it's about business, crowd energy, and overall atmosphere. Bigger stages bring more fans, amplify the event's intensity, and give her the environment where she performs best. So when the Madrid Open took a different route, it raised questions that went beyond a single match. Was it simply an oversight, or a calculated call that underestimated the impact of removing one of the tournament's most electric crowd dynamics? That uncertainty becomes even more compelling when considering what Eala represents at this stage of her career. She's not just competing, she's building presence, momentum, and visibility. Yet, at one of the season's biggest clay events, she found herself shifted away from the spotlight at a crucial moment. Still, if there's one trait that defines Eala, it's resilience. Even as her singles run ended earlier than expected, her campaign was far from over. She quickly turned her focus to doubles, teaming up with Zeynep Sonmez. Ahead stood a formidable challenge against second seeds Katarina Siniakova and Taylor Townsend, a matchup where expectations clearly leaned against the young pairing.
Never expected anything like this sa totoo lang because syempre Philippines is not really on the map here 6 months ago. Nung nanalo si Alex and she's getting a really good world ranking. She's doing well in the tournaments. She's beating champions. She's beating the world number ones. That's given it so much great exposure for the Filipinos out here. That sometimes nagtetend. Sometimes na gano'n, mga barkada kasama and they go hit around. But now sometimes some of them will want to teach their children and hone their skills. So when they get older, they might have potential, reaching the same potential as.
In many ways, that match is about more than just a result for Alex Eala. It's another opportunity to compete, adapt, and gain experience against elite opponents, even when expectations are low. Often, those are the environments where growth accelerates most away from the spotlight, where comfort is limited and every point teaches something new. Her schedule doesn't ease up from here. After the Madrid Open, she heads to the Catalonia Open in La Bisbal, entering as the 6th seed. While a challenger-level event may not carry the same prestige, it offers something valuable at this stage: winnable matches, confidence-building performances, and momentum she can carry forward. That momentum will matter heading into the French Open, where she is set for her second appearance in the main draw. It's a stage that can shape careers, produce breakthroughs, and define long-term trajectories. By the time she arrives in Paris, the narrative around her could look very different. Because if Madrid showed anything, it's how quickly circumstances can change in tennis. Sometimes the biggest challenges aren't just the opponents on the other side of the net, but the conditions, decisions, and small shifts that surround the match itself.
Players coming from respective countries, like she's coming from Philippines, which is now a big deal. She's been the biggest ever, tennis player from that country, which is a big country and there's big interest. So things like that happen. I mean, it's, you could argue that it was, maybe a poor schedule and maybe they could schedule him on a bigger court. Yes. But again, she's so young and she's just coming through. So, and obviously the first couple of rounds, the schedule is so packed, the big courts with big names, it's difficult.
The court size, the crowd presence, the atmosphere in the air, and even subtle behind-the-scenes decisions can all shape how a match unfolds. For Alex Eala, this stretch feels less like a setback and more like a setup for what comes next. The real question isn't whether she can respond. History already suggests she can. It's what happens when everything aligns again. The right stage, the right energy, and a crowd that amplifies every shot she hits. Because when that moment arrives, it may not just be a comeback story. It could be the point where the rest of the tour realizes she has been building towards something bigger all along. Players like Eala don't quietly enter relevance, they demand attention, whether the stage is prepared or not. Tennis often sells itself as a pure one-on-one battle decided only by skill and execution. But situations like this quietly remind everyone that context still matters more than people admit. Conditions, atmosphere, and momentum can all tilt the balance in ways that don't show up in the scoreline. Imagine an alternate version of that same match. Eala walking onto a packed main court, thousands of voices rising with every point. Even with Elise Mertens controlling rallies early and applying pressure, the energy shifts differently. Momentum builds in waves instead of silence. And suddenly, the story of the match doesn't feel predetermined, it feels alive, unpredictable, and waiting to turn at any moment.
These comparisons maybe with Leylah Fernandez, I mean, obviously in terms of your game, you're both lefties, you both sometimes take the ball early. Are you familiar with these comparisons, and how do you feel about that?
No, I'm not really familiar with those comparisons, but I think Leylah's a great player. Obviously, she did the final in US Open a couple of years back, so she's a trailblazer in her own way. I think I'm not so close with her. We've had a couple of interactions, but she seems like...
The difference isn't visible in the score at that stage, it shows up in what could have happened next. A single breakpoint, a long rally swinging in Alex Eala's favor, or a sudden roar from the crowd can change everything, turning frustration into belief in an instant. That version of the match never truly came alive. Instead, the Madrid Open delivered a controlled setting that rewarded stability over emotion and experience over momentum. It created the kind of environment where a player like Elise Mertens can operate at her most efficient, calm, structured, and difficult to disrupt. Whether intentional or not, that contrast still shaped how the contest unfolded in a way that's hard to ignore. With Eala, though, there's a familiar pattern. Frustration rarely stays as frustration. It often becomes fuel. That's why her upcoming stretch suddenly carries more weight than it did a week earlier. The move to the Catalonia Open isn't just a step down in level, it's a reset. A chance to rebuild rhythm, collect wins, and reconnect with the version of her game that thrives on flow and momentum. Lower-ranked opponents will bring different kinds of pressure, but also something Madrid couldn't offer: space. Space to dominate, to experiment, and to rediscover that natural confidence that defines her best tennis when everything clicks and the game starts to feel effortless again.
Good call. Manny Pacquiao, we saw him when he, was at the top of his game, and alongside Roger Federer, he actually had more prize money. So I think that if Eala, can keep doing well with her tennis, who knows? The sky's the limit on the court, off the court. I mean, she could be rolling in it, if you will.
Yeah, she's got a smile that lights up a room too, And I remember last year when she beat Iga Swiatek, and she kind of did it with a lot of.
The move to the Italian Open brings its own pressure for Alex Eala, because returning to a venue where she previously exited early is never just about the draw. It's about rewriting that memory, stepping onto familiar courts with a sharper mindset, and showing clear signs of growth. From there, everything points toward the French Open, where small details and quiet decisions disappear under the scale of the moment. At Roland Garros, there's no hiding place, no reduced spotlight or softened atmosphere. Every match is amplified. If Eala finds her rhythm in time, if confidence returns at the right stage, and if the crowd once again becomes a driving force, the narrative can shift quickly. What once looked like inconsistency could transform into momentum. And in that version of events, the focus won't be on Madrid's setbacks anymore. It will be on how long it took everyone to realize that a player like Eala was never meant to be contained in the first place.